Hey guys, it's me, the Tenkaichi of gaming, and I want you to take a look at this article here that was brought to my attention last night. Yes, ever since last night, during review stream, we were talking a little bit about this, and this article, wow, finally the nail gets smacked on the head really hard. Says Nancy Pelosi, video games are not the reason for violence in America. Instead of playing the video, I'm just going to read this article. And skim through it for a little bit. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on Sunday pushed back against the argument that violent video games are responsible for mass shootings in the U.S., pointing to other countries where similar games are played, but rates of shooting deaths are low. As part of a larger effort to address mass shootings in the wake of the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut, House Democrats are proposing using federal dollars for scientific research on the relationship between popular culture and gun violence. On Fox News Sunday, host Chris Wallace challenged Pelosi on this plan, saying she should instead simply go to her friends in Hollywood and shame them into action. As part of your plan, you call for more scientific research on the connection between pop culture and violence. We don't need another study, respectfully, said Wallace. I mean, we know that these video games where people have their heads splattered, these movies, these TV shows, why don't you go to your friends in Hollywood and challenge them, shame them, and say, knock it off? Pelosi responded that Democrats wanted concrete scientific evidence in order to write the best legislation possible, and countered that Wallace's assumptions about violence in the media could be incorrect. I understand what you're saying, Pelosi said. I'm a mother and a grandmother. But not Hollywood, but the evidence says that in Japan, for example, they have the most violent games and the lowest death mortality from guns. I don't know what the explanation is for that, except they may have good gun laws. When looking at the other largest video game markets around the world, there appeared to be no statistical correlation between video game consumption and gun-related killings. Max Fisher at the Washington Post recently examined some of this data and found that countries where video games are popular also tend to be some of the world's safest, probably because these countries are stable and developed, not because they have video games. In 2011, the Supreme Court struck down a California law banning the sale of violent video games to minors. Justin Antoninska, writing for a 7-2 majority, said the law was unpredicted and mistaken, and noted that even fairy tales have no shortage of gore. Pointing the finger at violent content, media is now without precedent. In the 1950s, for example, Congress looked at whether crime and horror comic books were affecting juvenile delinquency. To this, I have to say, video games were never the problem. That's probably the one thing I can say for this. Video games were never the problem. Ever since the 70s, or rather the early 80s, video games have never been a problem. They were designed to do what they were supposed to do. Basically, video games were always a means to entertain the masses. They worked with young people in the 80s, in the 90s, and up to now. And as we are entering And now, as we are ushering in a new age, a new year, it's true. There have been various video games that have violence and gore in them. I own a couple of video games that have such violence and gore in them, but the thing is, they don't manipulate me to go out and go on a killing spree. True, what happened in Newtown was a tragedy, but we moved past that. The one thing that should be done is that most it is what needs to be done about how to make sure that the kids that go to school are safe. Now, I feel that, ever since this whole thing has been happening, I feel that people have been going to the extreme about this sort of subject. That they say, well, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do the following. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to defend our children, and we're going to have to teach our teachers how to defend themselves. And not to mention the fact that this goes without saying. You may see it as right, and that's fine and all. But truly, you have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture here is that there's a thing called the ESRB. I feel that ignorance is sometimes bliss, especially the parents of this age. They don't know what they're getting into. I've seen this. I've pretty much been a witness to this every time I visit a GameStop. I've seen parents just bend to their children's whims, saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And these kids, I've noticed this, they pick out the most violent game that they can actually put their greasy little hands on and say, oh, mommy, I want this. Oh, daddy, I want this. Now, come on, people. Would you want your kids to actually play an M-rated game, which has such violence and gore that it'll somehow make them so sick, and somehow at the same time twist their little minds, and without any knowledge of what they're playing, consider that it's cool? Yeah, get what I'm saying, kids. The point is, don't blame video games. Video games have done nothing but do two things. It has made consumers and customers. We of this generation basically are the customers, and since there are various video games that are in stock, as well as consoles that are being pushed out into the market, such as the Wii U and the PS Vita, and the future of the Xbox and and probably the PlayStation as well. People are trying to make a living in what they are doing. You can't stop what is already in progress. impede maybe, but you can't stop it. I feel that it's like this. Pelosi defends video games. Truly, violent video games were never responsible for causing mass shootings in America. They were never responsible. What I feel was responsible was that people who somehow managed to, I don't know, not know about the difference between reality and fantasy, they usually don't get the point, and therefore they're the ones who basically act stupid. And they're the ones who honestly think, oh, they're in a real video game. Remember Nick Arcade? Yeah. Remember when that show only had you in a video game in which it was just a green screen? Yeah. It really wasn't that bad. But you know, times have changed. You got kids who want to play Halo and Call of Duty and probably Grand Theft Auto. But you know, like I said, I'm sorry, but there are some things you can do and some things you can't do. For one, let's read what let's just say this. I like this one right here. It says here, if violent video games are not the problem, let's stop schools from punishing kids for playing with toy guns or even pretending to have guns. That is getting beyond silly. And let me see. I'm reading most of these comments here, and I like this one. Well, of course video games are the problem. Video games are inanimate objects unable to kill anyone on their own. Oh wait, guns are too. I mean, to be honest, let's think about this. Let's just think about this. Okay. Consider going to a movie, right? And this movie, and considering that you go out to a movie, and it's a good movie. It's like a R-rated movie. Like let's just consider you're watching an R-rated movie. You have gratuitous violence, gratuitous nudity. You would have violence, gratuitous nudity, and all the things that make a R-rated movie. Now, let's say some dumbass actually brings their kid into an R-rated movie instead of just having them being put into a G-rated or a PG or PG-13 kind of movie. Yeah, you see where I'm getting at? It doesn't make sense. You see, the point is that I feel that mainly the bigger issue, you want to protect the kids? Fine. How do you protect the kids? Knowledge. You impart knowledge to your children. That's how you save your kids. That's how you basically not worry about a thing. You impart knowledge to them. Before they even have a chance to even pick up a controller, before they even have a chance to watch TV, do the smart thing. Let your kids impart to your kids about what's good, what's bad, what's real, what's fantasy, and explain them to them. Just explain it all to them, what they need to know and what they have to know, and how to know the difference and everything else. Because if you think about it, I feel that is what should be, that's what it should be about. If you're that scared, do something about it. Namely, this lady right here, she knows what she's talking about. I mean, basically, I don't see nothing wrong with this. I mean, video games have been around for a little over 30 years, maybe longer. And plus, on top of that, well, you can never, never, you can never ever be too ashamed to say, oh, well, let me sit you down and talk. That's the problem. That's the problem with parents these days. They don't talk to their kids. They don't tell their kids what's up. And for God's sakes, knowledge starts within the household. Because if you start there, then you'll feel better knowing that, hey, your kids know what's up. They're not gonna feel like they're threatened or anything like that. I mean, the bigger picture that should be stated is that we can't forget what happened. We can't forget what happened, but we can prevent it with a pound of cure and an ounce of prevention. How to do that is with knowledge. Knowledge, people, instead of ignorance. Because, as we all know, ignorance is bliss. And stupidity is disease that no one is immune to. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's my point of view about this subject. Please comment on your view about this subject. That about this issue that I just shared my 2 cents about. And let me know what you think. So with that, I've been the Tenkaichi. I've spoken my 2 cents, and I am out. Stay tuned for more videos.